The morning sun barely peeked over Earth's horizon when humanity's future changed forever. Commander Daniel Wright stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Guardian, his eyes fixed on the massive alien ship that had appeared in Earth's orbit just hours ago. "Sir, they're broadcasting again," Lieutenant Anna Martinez said from her communications station. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display. "Same frequency as before." Wright nodded, his face showing no fear despite the tension in the room. "Put them through, Lieutenant." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, purple-skinned alien with 4 eyes and armor that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. High Commander Vexthor of the Zaxian Empire looked down at the humans with obvious disdain. "Your species has 1 standard rotation to submit to Zaxian rule," Vexthor announced in perfectly translated English. "Your technology is primitive, your defenses inadequate. Resistance would only result in unnecessary destruction." Wright kept his voice steady as he replied, "With all due respect, High Commander, Earth and her people are not interested in submission. We would prefer peaceful first contact and diplomatic relations." The alien's upper eyes blinked slowly. "Diplomacy is for equals, human. You are not our equals." As the transmission ended, Wright turned to his crew. "Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations." He wouldn't let Earth fall. Not today. Not ever. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Earth's combined defense fleet of 50 ships took up defensive positions around the planet. They were smaller than the 15 Zaxian warships, but Wright knew that size wasn't everything. Lieutenant Martinez worked tirelessly at her station, analyzing the alien transmissions. Something about their shield frequencies caught her attention. "Commander," she called out suddenly, "I've noticed a pattern in their shield modulation. There's a slight delay every time they adjust their coverage." Wright moved to her station, studying the data. "How long is the delay?" 0.3 seconds, sir. It's not much. But it might be enough." Wright finished. He quickly opened a channel to all Earth ships. "All vessels, this is Commander Wright. Target these coordinates with pulse lasers. Time your shots to my mark." The Zaxian ships moved into attack formation. Their purple energy weapons lashed out, but Earth's ships scattered in seemingly random patterns. Wright watched his tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. "Sir, they're charging weapons for another volley," the tactical officer reported. "Stand by," Wright ordered. He watched as the enemy shields shifted slightly, adjusting to the Earth ships' new positions. "Now, all ships, fire." 50 synchronized laser pulses struck the lead Zaxian ship at exactly the same point, catching the momentary gap in their shields. The massive vessel's hull cracked, atmosphere venting into space. The bridge crew cheered, but Wright kept his focus. Again, same pattern. The Earth fleet moved like a well-rehearsed dance team, striking during each shield rotation. 3 more Zaxian ships suffered critical damage before the aliens realized what was happening. "They're adjusting their shield rotation," Martins reported. "The gap is gone." Wright smiled. "Doesn't matter. They've shown their weakness. All ships, switch to Formation Delta. Let's show them what humanity can really do." The battle that followed would be remembered in human history as the Day of Fire. Earth's smaller ships darted between the massive Zaxian vessels, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the powerful but slow alien weapons. Each Earth ship targeted different weak points, forcing the Zaxians to constantly adjust their shields. "Sir, look," Martins pointed to her display. "They're breaking formation." The Zaxian fleet's perfect military formation had dissolved into chaos. Their rigid tactical doctrine had no answer for the unpredictable human attack patterns. 2 more alien ships suffered critical damage before High Commander Vexthor's voice boomed across all channels. "Cease fire," the alien leader demanded. This is impossible. You were supposed to be primitive." Wright opened a channel. "High Commander, would you like to discuss diplomatic relations now?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Vexthor spoke again, his voice carrying a new tone, one of respect mixed with fear. The Zaxian Empire has misjudged your species, Commander Wright. Perhaps negotiations would be appropriate. I'm glad you see things our way, Wright replied. But first, your fleet will withdraw beyond Luna's orbit. Consider it a show of good faith. As the damaged Zaxian ships retreated, Wright turned to his crew. Well done, everyone. Especially you, Lieutenant Martinez. Your observation saved a lot of lives today. Martinez nodded, but her expression was serious. Sir, during the battle, I intercepted some of their internal communications. They were sending messages to something called the Galactic Council. I don't think this is over. Wright looked out at the stars, where the Zaxian ships were becoming distant points of light. No, Lieutenant, I don't think it is. But today, humanity proved something important. He paused, a determined smile crossing his face. We proved that we won't be pushed around, no matter how advanced our opponents might be. The crew of the Guardian worked through the night, repairing damage and preparing reports. None of them knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. In the weeks that followed, Earth's governments united like never before. The threat of alien invasion had done what centuries of diplomacy couldn't. It had given humanity a common purpose. Scientists studied the data from the battle. Engineers began designing new weapons, and military leaders planned for future confrontations. Commander Wright stood in the newly established Earth Defense Command Center, looking at a holographic map of known space. Lieutenant Martinez worked nearby, coordinating with teams analyzing the Zaxian technology. They'll be back, Wright said quietly. And next time, they'll be better prepared. Martinez looked up from her work. So will we, sir. They thought we were primitive because we didn't match their definition of advanced. But they learned something today. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. Wright nodded. It's our ability to adapt, to think differently, to find solutions where others see only problems. He turned to face the bustling command center. And that's exactly why they're afraid of us now. The stars seemed different that night to everyone who looked up at them. They were no longer just distant points of light. They were a frontier, a challenge, and a warning. Humanity had survived its first contact with alien life, but the real test was just beginning. The galaxy had gained a new player in its ancient game of power and politics, and humanity was ready to show exactly what they could do. As Wright headed home that evening, he couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Zaxians had called humans primitive, but their rigid thinking and overconfidence had been their downfall. Humanity's supposed weakness, their unpredictability and adaptability, had proven to be their greatest strength. The galaxy's new nightmare wasn't humanity's weapons or technology. It was their relentless spirit, their ability to face impossible odds and find a way to win. And this was only the beginning. 6 months after humanity's first battle with the Zaxian Empire, Earth had changed more than anyone could have imagined. Admiral Kate Morrison stood in the newly built Space Development Center, watching scientists work on captured alien technology. The large room hummed with activity as researchers studied holographic displays and ran tests on strange devices. "Admiral, you need to see this," Dr. Lisa Bennett called out from her workstation. The young scientist's eyes were bright with excitement as she waved Morrison over. "We've cracked it. The shield technology. We finally understood how it works." Morrison walked quickly to Bennett's station, where a complex diagram floated in the air. "Show me." "Look here," Bennett pointed to a swirling pattern of energy. "The Zaxians use a fixed pattern for their shields, but we found a way to make them change and adapt. Christopher Hayes helped me design this new system that learns from attacks and changes its pattern." Next to her, Christopher Hayes nodded eagerly. "We're calling it the Chameleon Shield. It's not just stronger, it's smarter." Before Morrison could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed as Major Peter Reynolds rushed into the room. "Admiral, We've got incoming. Multiple Zaxian ships just appeared near Mars. How many? Morrison asked, already moving toward the command center. 30 vessels, ma'am. Bigger than the ones we faced before. Morrison's face hardened. They've learned from last time. Get me Earth Defense Command. In the next hour, Earth's defense fleet scrambled to meet the threat. But this time, they were ready. Every ship had been upgraded with new weapons and systems based on what they'd learned from the first battle. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. She broadcast to the fleet. Remember your training. They expect us to use the same tricks as last time. Let's show them something new. The Zaxian fleet approached in perfect formation, their ships arranged in a triangle pattern that would have looked beautiful if it wasn't so threatening. Their leader's face appeared on the main screen. A different commander this time, one with deep red markings on his purple skin. I am War Master Krolvex, the alien announced. Surrender now, and some of your people may be allowed to live as servants. Morrison smiled coldly. War Master, you should have learned from your last visit. Humanity doesn't surrender. The battle began with a devastating surprise. As the Zaxian ships fired their first volley, the human fleet's new shields sparkled to life. The alien weapons struck the shields but couldn't break through. Impossible, Krolvex shouted. Those are advanced barrier systems. You couldn't have developed them so quickly. That's your first mistake, Morrison replied. Never underestimate how fast humans can learn. All ships, execute Pattern Omega. Earth's fleet split into smaller groups, each one attacking from a different angle. The new Chimelian shields shifted and changed with each hit they took, becoming stronger instead of weaker. It was like fighting an enemy that got tougher every time you hit it. On one of the colony ships near Mars, Major Peter Reynolds watched the battle with growing hope. The colony he'd helped establish was supposed to be humanity's backup plan if Earth fell. Now it looked like it might become something else, the first step in humanity's expansion to the stars. Back in the battle, the Zaxian fleet's perfect formation had broken apart again. Their ships fired desperately at the human vessels, but the adaptive shields absorbed everything they threw at them. Then the humans started firing back. Target their engine cores, Morrison ordered. Let's show them our new weapons too. Beams of energy that seemed to bend around the Zaxian shields struck the alien ships. Dr. Bennett had called them quantum phase torpedoes, but most of the crew just called them ghost bullets because they passed right through normal defenses. 3 Zaxian ships exploded in quick succession. The others tried to regroup, but Earth's fleet had them surrounded. That's when something unexpected happened. A new signal cut through all communication channels. The voice spoke in a language no human had heard before, but their translation systems quickly adjusted. This is Captain Rilna of the Free Worlds Alliance, the voice announced. We've been monitoring this battle. Humanity has proven itself worthy. We request permission to join your fight against the Zaxian Empire. 5 new ships appeared from behind Mars, their design completely different from the Zaxian vessels. They immediately opened fire on the Zaxian fleet's rear positions. War Master Krolvex's voice boomed across the communications again, this time filled with rage. Traitors. The Galactic Council will hear of this. The Council already knows, Captain Rilla replied. They're about to learn that humans aren't the only ones tired of Zaxian control. The battle ended quickly after that. The remaining Zaxian ships retreated, leaving behind their damaged and destroyed vessels. As the dust settled, Morrison found herself in a surprising diplomatic meeting with Captain Rilna's people. There are many species in this galaxy who suffer under Zaxian rule, Rilna explained. Her species looked almost like tall, blue-skinned humans with silver eyes. We've been watching since your first contact. You're the first species in centuries to stand up to them and win. Morrison studied the alien captain carefully. You're suggesting an alliance. More than that, Rilna said. We're suggesting a revolution. The Zaxians control the Galactic Council through fear and advanced technology. But you humans, she paused, looking at the displays showing the battle data. You took their technology and made it better in months. Imagine what we could do together. Later that day, Morrison met with Earth's leaders to discuss this new development. Dr. Bennett and Hayes were there too, along with Major Reynolds. The Zaxians will return with an even larger fleet, Reynolds warned. But next time, we won't be alone. Morrison nodded. We need to prepare. Double the colony efforts on Mars. Speed up the weapons research. And most importantly, learn everything we can from our new allies. As the meeting ended, Dr. Bennett approached Morrison with a serious look. Admiral, there's something else you should know. During the battle, our systems picked up transmissions from other alien ships, ones that were just watching. We're not just fighting the Zaxians anymore. The whole galaxy is watching us. Morrison looked out the window at the stars. Good, she said firmly. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you push humanity into a corner. We won't just survive. We'll change the rules of the game. The next few weeks were filled with activity as humanity prepared for what was coming. The Mars colony grew larger, ships were built faster, and new technologies were developed daily. Earth had become something no one expected, a beacon of hope for oppressed species across the galaxy. The Zaxians had wanted to make humanity submit. Instead, they had created their own worst nightmare, a species that could not only fight back, but inspire others to do the same. The storm was rising, and this time, humanity would be the ones leading the charge. Captain Susan Clark sat in the darkness of her ship's bridge, watching the massive Zaxian patrol fleet pass by. Her ship, the Shadow Dancer, floated silently among the debris of an old space battle. The Zaxians didn't notice them. They never did. Status report, she whispered to her crew. In space, whispering wasn't necessary, but it felt right when they were hiding. 5 Zaxian battleships, her sensor officer replied quietly. They're following their usual patrol route, just like the intel said they would. Clark nodded. The Zaxians were so predictable. They always followed the same patterns, used the same tactics. It made them easy to study, and easy to surprise. Send the signal to the other ships, she ordered. Tell them to wait for my mark. Hidden throughout the debris field, 4 other human ships waited silently. This mission was different from the big battles that had happened before. This was something new, something the Zaxians wouldn't expect. Dr. Ryan Cooper's quantum communication device let them talk to each other without the Zaxians detecting their signals. It was just one of many new tools humanity had developed in the past few months. All ships report ready, her communications officer said. Clark took a deep breath. Begin Operation Ghost Strike. The Shadow Dancer's engines came to life, but they didn't make the usual bright blue glow. Instead, they pulsed with a soft, barely visible purple light. The ship moved through the debris field like a fish swimming through dark water. The first Zaxian ship didn't even know what hit it. The Shadow Dancer appeared behind it, fired its new phase cannons at the exact spot where the shield generators were located, and disappeared again into the darkness of space. 1 down, Clark announced. Move to Target 2. The other human ships joined the dance, each one appearing from nowhere, striking hard, and vanishing again. The Zaxian ships fired blindly into space, their weapons hitting nothing but debris. This is War Commander Zextal. An angry voice boomed across all channels. Show yourselves, cowards. Fight with honor. Clark smiled as she ordered another strike. They still don't understand, she said to her crew. There's no honor in dying when you can win by being clever instead. By the time the battle ended, all 5 Zaxian ships had been disabled, not destroyed. That wasn't the mission. Clark's team had taken out their engines, weapons, and communications, leaving them floating helplessly in space. Send the message, Clark ordered. Her communications officer nodded and transmitted their prepared statement. Your ships have been disabled. Your crews will survive if you follow our instructions. This sector is now under Earth protection. The people you once enslaved are now free. Back on Earth, Dr. Ryan Cooper watched the mission's success through his quantum communication network. He turned to Admiral Morrison with a smile. "Captain Clark's new tactics are working perfectly. The Zaxians don't know how to fight an enemy they can't see coming." Morrison nodded. "How many sectors have we freed so far?" 7, Cooper replied. "And 3 more alien species have joined our alliance this week alone. The Meridian Alliance is growing faster than we expected." The Meridian Alliance had started small, just Earth and a few rebel alien groups. But as word spread about humanity's successful raids against the Zaxians, more species wanted to join. They all had their own reasons to hate the Zaxian Empire, and now they had hope of breaking free. "Dr. Cooper," a young technician called out, "we're getting a signal from Jennifer Morris's stealth carrier. They've successfully infiltrated Zaxian space." This was the biggest mission yet. The stealth carrier Freedom's Shadow, commanded by Jennifer Morris, had sneaked past the Zaxian border defenses. They were going to map the Empire's territory from the inside, something no one had ever done before. Morris's voice came through the quantum network, clear despite being light years away. "This is amazing," she reported. "Their defenses are strong, but they're all focused outward. They never thought anyone would get past their borders. We're collecting data on everything: fleet movements, colony locations, supply routes." Morrison smiled. This was exactly what they needed. "The Zaxians think war is about big fleets and powerful weapons," she said. "We're teaching them that information and surprise can be even stronger." But not everything was going perfectly. Later that day, Morrison received troubling news from their alien allies. "The Galactic Council has officially declared humans a threat species," Captain Rilna reported. Her blue face looked worried on the communication screen. "They're trying to turn other species against you." Morrison wasn't surprised. How many species are actually listening to them? "Not as many as they hoped," Rilna replied with a small smile. "Your success is giving others courage. 3 more Zaxian colonies have already asked for Earth's protection." This was new information. "Their own colonies want our protection?" Morrison asked. "The Zaxian Empire isn't just holding other species down," Rilna explained. "Many of their own people are tired of their strict rules and harsh control. They've seen how Earth treats its allies, with respect and freedom. They want that too." The news spread quickly through Earth's command center. Humanity wasn't just fighting the Zaxian Empire anymore. They were changing it from the inside out. Captain Clark returned from her mission a few days later. Her ships had freed another sector from Zaxian control, and this time 2 Zaxian colonies had helped them do it. "The Empire is starting to crack," she reported to Morrison. "Their perfect order is breaking down. They don't know who to trust anymore." Morrison nodded. "Keep pushing. Every successful mission shows more people that the Zaxians aren't invincible. How's the new stealth system working?" "Better than we hoped," Clark replied. "Dr. Cooper's quantum technology lets us coordinate perfectly, and the Zaxians still haven't figured out how we're doing it. They keep trying to copy our tactics, but they don't understand that our strength isn't in our technology. It's in our ability to think differently," Morrison finished. "To adapt and change while they stay rigid and predictable." The war was far from over, but humanity had found their path to victory. They wouldn't win with bigger ships or stronger weapons. They would win by being unpredictable, by striking from the shadows, and by showing others that freedom was possible. As Clark prepared for her next mission, she looked at the star map showing all the sectors they had freed. Humanity had started this fight just trying to defend Earth. Now they were leading a revolution that was changing the entire galaxy. "The Zaxians called us primitives," she said to her crew. "But we're teaching them that new doesn't mean weak, and different doesn't mean wrong. We're humanity, and we're rewriting the rules of warfare one surprise at a time." The shadow dancer disappeared into the darkness of space again, ready for another mission. Throughout the galaxy, other ships like it were doing the same, spreading hope and freedom one raid at a time. The Zaxians had created their own worst nightmare. an enemy they couldn't predict, couldn't control, and couldn't stop. Admiral Kate Morrison stood before the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 300 Earth ships floated in formation around Jupiter, joined by another 200 vessels from their alien allies. On the main screen, the faces of various commanders watched her, waiting for her words. "Operation Shadow Strike begins in 6 hours," she announced. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. Today, we free not just a few sectors, but entire regions of space." The plan was bigger than anything they'd tried before. While Captain Clark's stealth missions had been breaking the Zaxian Empire piece by piece, this would be different. This was an all-out assault on their power. Colonel Andrew Baker, leader of the Special Forces, spoke up from his ship. "My teams are ready, Admiral. The moment your fleet engages their main forces, we'll launch our rescue operations." Baker's mission was perhaps the most important part of the plan. While the main fleet distracted the Zaxians, his teams would free 3 enslaved species from heavily guarded prison worlds. The Zaxians would never expect an attack on such heavily defended targets during a major battle. "Athena is online and ready," Dr. Elizabeth Ward reported from Earth Command. The AI strategic system she had helped develop was humanity's secret weapon. While the Zaxian battle computers could process millions of tactical scenarios, Athena could think creatively, finding solutions that machines would never consider. Morrison nodded to all of them. "Remember, everyone, the Zaxians expect us to fight like them, to match fleet against fleet in open battle. That's exactly what we're not going to do." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each with its own mission. Some would attack Zaxian supply lines. Others would target their communication centers. The main fleet, led by Morrison, would engage the Zaxian home fleet, but not in the way they expected. As the operation began, Dr. Ward's new propulsion technology proved its worth. Human ships appeared and disappeared across vast distances, striking targets the Zaxians thought were safely behind their lines. "Multiple Zaxian fleets are responding to our attacks," the tactical officer reported. "They're splitting their forces, just as Athena predicted." Morrison smiled. The Zaxians were so used to fighting wars in a certain way that they couldn't adapt when the rules changed. They saw the humans attacking everywhere at once and tried to defend everything at once. It was exactly what humanity wanted them to do. Meanwhile, Colonel Baker's teams were achieving their own victories. His ships, using the most advanced stealth technology Earth had developed, slipped past the defenses of the prison worlds. "This is Baker." His voice came through the quantum network. "First prison camp liberated. You should see their faces, Admiral. Some of these species have been enslaved for centuries. They're crying with joy." The news got better. As Baker's teams freed each prison camp, the liberated species immediately joined the fight. They knew the layouts of their prison worlds and helped human forces free others. Back in the main battle, Morrison watched as the Zaxian fleet tried to counter their attacks, but Athena was predicting their every move, allowing the human ships to stay 2 steps ahead. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're getting signals from multiple Zaxian colonies. They're asking for our protection. They want to defect." This was something even Athena hadn't predicted. The sight of humanity's fleet freely moving through their space, combined with the news of the prison camp liberations, had convinced many Zaxian colonies that the Empire was losing its grip. "The Zaxian fleet is falling into chaos," Captain Rilna reported from her ship. "Their commanders are arguing over whether to defend their core worlds or try to stop the colony defections." Morrison knew this was their chance. "All ships, execute Phase 3. Colonel Baker, begin your final approach." Baker's special forces, now aided by the freed species, launched a daring raid on the Zaxian Military Academy, the heart of their rigid tactical doctrine. They didn't destroy it. Instead, they broadcast proof of how the Empire had been lying to its own people for centuries. "You should see this, Admiral," Baker reported. "The younger Zaxians here. They're not fighting us. They're asking questions, Many of them are saying they've had doubts about the Empire's ways for years. The operation continued through the next day. More colonies declared their independence. More enslaved species were freed. The Zaxian Empire's perfect order was crumbling, not just from outside attacks, but from within. Dr. Ward's voice came through the quantum network. Admiral, Athena has analyzed the current situation. The Zaxian Empire's control is failing faster than we expected. Their own military is starting to split into factions. Morrison watched as the tactical display showed more and more systems turning away from the Empire's control. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a complete change in how the galaxy worked. "Send word to all ships," she ordered. "Phase 4 begins now. Show them what humanity's real power is." Phase 4 wasn't about fighting. Instead, human ships began offering aid to struggling colonies, regardless of their species. They helped repair damaged infrastructure, provided medical assistance, and shared food and supplies. The Zaxians told everyone we were primitives, Morrison said to her crew. They said we were a threat to galactic civilization. Now everyone can see the truth. We're not here to conquer. We're here to help. The effects were immediate. More worlds asked to join the alliance. Even some of the Zaxian warships, seeing how humanity treated both allies and former enemies, began to question their loyalty to the Empire. Colonel Baker's final report came in late that day. "Mission accomplished. Admiral, the prison worlds are free. The enslaved species have their homes back. And something else. Many of the Zaxian guards have surrendered. They're asking to join us." Morrison looked at the strategic display one last time. The Zaxian Empire's territory had shrunk by almost half. Their fleet was scattered. Their iron grip on the galaxy was broken. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered. "Operation Shadow Strike is a success, but make sure they understand. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning." She was right. The galaxy was changing. The rigid, controlling empire was being replaced by something new. A coalition of species working together, learning from each other, growing stronger through cooperation instead of conquest. The Zaxians thought they could predict everything we would do, Morrison said to her crew. They thought their empire would last forever because they had the biggest ships and the strongest weapons. But they forgot something important. She looked out at the stars, where Earth ships now flew freely alongside vessels from a dozen other species. They forgot that real strength isn't about having the most power. It's about knowing the right way to use it. The battle was over, but humanity's influence was just beginning to spread. They had shown the galaxy a new way, one where different species could work together, where being different was a strength, not a weakness. The galaxy's nightmare had turned into its greatest hope, and it was all because humanity had refused to play by the old rules. Fleet Admiral Daniel Wright walked through the grand halls of the Galactic Council for the first time. 6 months had passed since Operation Shadow Strike, and the galaxy was a very different place. The huge chamber, with its towering crystal walls and floating platforms, seemed less intimidating than he had imagined. "The Council is ready to see you, Admiral," a blue-skinned aide said, leading him toward the main chamber. Wright nodded to Captain Susan Clark and Admiral Kate Morrison, who walked beside him. They had all come a long way since that first battle with the Zaxians. Now they were here to help shape the galaxy's future. The council chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. The Zaxians were there too, but they no longer dominated the proceedings. Their delegation was led by Reform Commander Valtex, one of the younger leaders who had supported change in the Empire. "The Council recognizes Earth's representatives," the chief speaker announced. His species looked like a tall, graceful tree with glowing leaves. "You may address the assembly." Wright stepped forward. "Members of the Council, we come here not to celebrate victory, but to talk about tomorrow. The old empire is gone. Now we must all decide what comes next." The chamber buzzed with quiet conversation. Everyone knew this meeting would change everything. The Zaxian Empire had split into two parts: the reformist Zaxians who wanted peace and cooperation, and the traditionalists who had fled to the outer regions. The Terran Protective Alliance offers membership to all species, Wright continued. Not just the former members of the Empire, but anyone who wants to join. We believe in working together, in learning from each other. Captain Clark stepped forward next. Her stealth missions had made her famous across the galaxy. We've shown that different ways of thinking make us stronger, not weaker. The Alliance isn't about one species controlling others. It's about all of us helping each other grow. Reform Commander Valtex stood up. The reformist Zaxians support this proposal. We have learned much from humans. Their adaptability, their creativity. These are not weaknesses as we once thought. They are strengths we can all learn from. The meeting continued for hours as different species asked questions and shared their thoughts. Dr. Elizabeth Ward, watching from Earth through the quantum network, smiled as she saw species that had once been enemies now talking about working together. The humans have changed everything, one council member said. They showed us that power doesn't have to mean control. It can mean protection, help, and growth instead. Morrison spoke last. Some people still call humanity the galaxy's nightmare, she said. But look around. Look at how many species are free now. Look at how many worlds are growing and changing. If we're a nightmare, we're only a nightmare to those who want to control and oppress others. The Council voted overwhelmingly to accept the Alliance's proposal. The galaxy would no longer be controlled by one empire. Instead, it would be a network of cooperative species, each bringing their own strengths and ideas. Later that day, Wright stood with his friends and colleagues, looking out at the spectacular view of the Council world's three suns setting. Remember when the Zaxians first called us primitive? Clark asked with a smile. Morrison nodded. They thought being different meant being wrong. They never understood that our differences are what make us strong. Wright watched as ships from dozens of species flew past the window. Human vessels flew alongside their former enemies, all working together now. We did more than win a war, he said quietly. We changed how people think. The change was visible everywhere. The former prison worlds were now thriving centers of culture and commerce. The reformist Zaxians were learning new ways of thinking from their allies. Even the traditionalists in the outer regions were slowly realizing that the old ways weren't coming back. Dr. Ryan Cooper's quantum communication network now connected most of the known galaxy, letting different species share ideas and knowledge instantly. Dr. Lisa Bennett's adaptive shield technology was being used to protect colonies from natural disasters instead of just fighting wars. The Terran Protective Alliance grew stronger each day, but not through force or fear. It grew because it offered something the Empire never had: the freedom to be different, to think differently, to find new solutions to old problems. We've got reports from the outer regions, Clark said, checking her datapad. 3 more traditionalist worlds have asked to join the Alliance. They say their young people are demanding change. Wright wasn't surprised. The galaxy had gotten its first taste of real freedom, and there was no going back. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage as the Empire's nightmare, but they had become something else, a symbol of hope, of change, of new possibilities. The Zaxians thought they were testing us when they first attacked Earth, Morrison said. But we were testing them too. We tested their belief that their way was the only way. And when that belief broke, everything changed. As the last sun set, Wright thought about how far they'd come. From a single defense against invasion to reshaping the entire galaxy, humanity had brought their greatest strengths to the stars: their creativity, their adaptability, and their belief that being different wasn't a weakness. What do you think comes next? Clark asked, looking out at the stars. Wright smiled. More changes, more challenges, more chances to show what humanity can do. The galaxy called us their nightmare because we didn't follow their rules. Now they're learning that sometimes you need to break the old rules to make things better. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of new possibilities. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and done more than just survive. They had shown the galaxy a new way forward. They were no longer the nightmare of the galaxy. They were its wake-up call, its catalyst for change, its hope for a better tomorrow. And this was just the beginning. Because if humanity had proven one thing, it was that there were always new ways to solve old problems, new paths to explore, new possibilities to discover. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.